Hi, everyone. I've been invited by Michael and Mark to ask the next question. I'm the producer of the Career AMA podcast. Lisa was born and raised in Sweden, where she has worked and a lot of personal questions being asked, which was pretty normal. However, she moved to the UK, studied there, and she realized it was absolutely not cool to ask personal questions. Now she has returned to her home country in Sweden. She kind of has no idea what to do. Could you break that down for someone like her? Because for me, cultural differences is very real. Living here in the US, in China, in Beijing, even different parts of the US can behave differently.
Thanks for asking that question, Faye. It's fantastic. Fantastic. And thanks for producing the show as well. Michael, you go ahead on this one.
Well, I think first the thing I like about this is just acknowledging the cultural differences. You'll hear me say, and I've said this before many times, hide in plain sight. So one of the things I do when I'm in a place that's new culturally is I will both try and do a little bit of research to find out kind of what's culturally acceptable, but then I'll play the part of the dumb American in a sense, because I kind of am. And I'll say, look, culturally, I'm not quite sure how to approach this, or what's the best way to do this here, or here's what I would normally do in the States, but does that work over here? And people are surprisingly willing to correct you and help you, and also they're really appreciative of your asking about how do I do it here, that I'm willing to flex and adapt to my culture. I find that especially when you're working for a company, like I've worked for US-based companies that were all over the globe, and so everything kind of comes out of the US and it's the dominant culture. But when you show respect to the local culture and the local ways of working, people really appreciate that, and they feel you're less coming to impose a way as you are to engage with them. So I think the first thing I would say was just, to Lisa, hide in plain sight and said, I've been with the English, and in my perspective there is we really didn't talk about near as much as we did here in Sweden. What are you guys comfortable with, chatting around here at work? And just ask the question and hide in plain sight. That's generally my go-to advice. Mark, what do you think about Lisa's situation there?
Yeah, for me, that's the perfect answer. So what I think I'm going to do here, Michael, Leckie, and Faye, is to test this out. So Faye, you were telling me earlier that, you understand the Beijing culture. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Beijing.
Okay, fantastic. So look, first of all, I'm checking out here. Have I got somebody here who really knows the culture? I don't want somebody who's like, yeah, I visited there once. Oh, I did a bit of business there. Oh, yeah, I saw a documentary on TV about that. I don't want that. That is not good intel as far as I'm concerned. We might get lucky, but it's risky. Here with Faye, I've got somebody who's saying, I'm confident, and there's veracity that I know this culture. Faye, tell me this. If I go and do business in Beijing, what is the one thing I can do to really mess it up? What shouldn't I do? What should I steer well clear of? Can you help me out on that, please?
Yeah, that's such a great question. There are small gestures that are not even verbal. For instance, like accepting business cards with both hands and really respect one another. Maybe not rush in with a huge hug and physical touch, but handshake is good.
Perfect. Okay, so that's really useful to be able to get, here's what you should steer clear of, okay? Now, Faye, if you could give me one thing that I could do that would really stand me really well, culturally there and get me through a lot of things, what's the one thing you'd give me?
I would say, gifting is such a big part of the culture. So if you're a new client, if you're meeting someone for the first time, if you bring something even from your home country, it doesn't have to be expensive. It's a gesture that you care.
Love it. A gesture that I care. Look, and how easy is it for me to do that? These are things I'm going to be able to do. Now, we all know there's so much more to it. But just note how easy it is and who you need to go to, which is somebody who is as close as possible to the people that you'll be dealing with. And Faye, how was it for you to answer those questions? Did it feel invasive, or did you feel like you would be unhelpful, or did it feel okay the way I asked it?
I loved it because I feel like you really care. And by sharing this conversation, that means more people learn about the Chinese culture, something I'm really proud of. So that felt right.
And it's great to see you there in front of what looks to me like an incredible piece of Chinese culture behind you. I think I know the story behind this, Faye, but tell us about that behind you.
Yeah, so my mom is living with me, and she painted this whole 4 meters by 2 meter silk painting. I want to mention silk because you have to get up really close to understand how it is done. And it's really sophisticated. And this particular style is called meticulous painting, which there are a lot of fine lines, a lot of precision, a lot of work and design that goes into it. And she was spending 40 years nearly at the Forbidden City in Beijing. So she's quite a master artist.
Just incredible. Look how amazing it is when you just get curious about people's culture, and look how much they give across to you. And Michael Leckie, what else have you got to say on this, if anything?
I think that really wraps it up nicely. The fact of the matter is that cultural barriers are not that hard if we try to breach them, but don't do it in secret. It reminds me, Mark, of we used to do work teaching coaching skills, and we give people like some questions to ask, and then they'd be practicing it, like in front of everyone. We knew we were practicing, but they'd do this. They go. Then they'd ask the question. I'd stop them and say, everybody sees you holding the card with the questions on it. You don't have to be sneaky. Just say, oh, here's a good question. I'm going to ask it. I think it's the same with things cross-culturally. Just ask the questions, be open about your ignorance, but more important, be open about your willingness to learn and to adapt. A little tiny bit of that goes a long, long way. So if you have other questions for us, or ask me anything about your careers or any aspect of that, we're glad to take those. You can go to michaelleckie.com/ask and put your questions in there, or reach out to us on YouTube, comments, LinkedIn, wherever you want to. We check all the channels and we try to respond to your questions as much as possible. Thank you so much for joining us again.